and I understand it's 2 years probation to go to college with no mandate, for getting on a public bus with an illegal gun, shooting an individual in the chest, which to me is intent to kill. And he walked away after we convicted him. He walked away with no jail time. If that's what you want in this district, then I'm the wrong person to be United States Attorney.
So, new U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, laying down the law at yesterday's DOJ news conference. Pirro took on reporters for citing crime stats, saying she's more concerned about the victims and their families. She joins us now. And I think you are the living embodiment of the phrase, right place at the right time. And you've been there for a few weeks now. Some of the things that you've seen are very disturbing. You have thoughts on how you think things could get solved. But in the commercial break, you were talking about one thing that has really troubled you, and that is the homicide rate of young people.
Yeah, first of all, it's great to be with you, Bill and Dana. Of course, I miss all my friends at Fox, but I am, in my element here. The truth is that I just, kind of on a whim just said, let me see the number of homicides of teens last year in D.C. and this year in D.C. You're looking at the 2024 kids who were shot and killed with firearms in 2024. There are 29 of them. Okay, every one of them is an African-American minority community. This is the community that's being victimized by violent crime. Now, in 2025, we've got 16, again under the age of 19, who have been shot and killed as a result of a firearm. So totally, we've got 45 African-American kids who've been killed. And the crucial point right now is that the clearance rate is 30%. What does that mean? That means that they've only solved 30% of the homicides of these teens in the last year and 7 months. That means that 70% of the murders that were committed with guns against teens in the minority community, those 70% of the murderers are walking around free. We don't know who they are because the cases have not been solved. And therein lies the problem. Young criminals in D.C. have been emboldened to commit crimes because they believe that they're not accountable. And why do they believe that? Because they are not accountable. We've got a D.C. council that has passed laws that make it almost impossible for me, as both federal prosecutor and kind of quasi-local prosecutor, to be able to incarcerate these kids. I can't even prosecute a teen who's 17, 18, 19 years old. Forget the 14, 15-year-olds who shoot someone with a gun. If you shoot someone with a gun in D.C. and you're up to 19 years of age, I can't even indict you.
Well,
and so
you
this
could
is a message.
Just to jump in here, you could if the D.C. Council changes the laws.
Right, but the laws are tying my hands.
I got you. Let me just show our audience what you're trying to get the D.C. Council to do. You want them to repeal the Youth Rehabilitation Act, the Incarceration Reduction Amendment Act, and the Second Chance Amendment Act. I read through this, Jeanine. You're basically trying to eliminate the reductions in sentencing for serious crimes especially, and also to get away from hiding the record from those in the future who would look back on the crimes for which they were convicted.
Yeah.
Do I have that right? And if I do,
totally
how would that change crime in Washington?
Well, what it would do is it would make people accountable, number one, and we're also looking to lower the age of criminals. What's happening is, even if you shoot someone with a gun, you go to family court where the purpose is rehabilitation. You get to go to an ice cream social and you get to go to yoga classes. That's nonsense, and that's not what we need in the nation's capital, and that's not why the president put me here. The president wants to make the Capitol safe and beautiful, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And the only way to do that is to change the laws that have protected young children who are committing adult crimes. And all of these statutes that they've passed don't allow me to incarcerate. They allow the removal or the erasure of convictions. How fair is that to a parent who wants to find out whether or not a nanny is someone who's been convicted of a prior assault? How fair is that to an employer who doesn't get to understand or know who he's hiring? Everything about the D.C. Council and the laws that they've passed are liberal, they're defense-leaning, and they're not in favor of the citizens of D.C. And that's what President Trump is fighting, and that's what we're going to change. We're going to change the laws. We're going to lower the age of criminal responsibility. We've seen too much of it. We've seen homicides against young people. We've seen assaults in areas where just a couple days ago a kid gets a fractured nose and gets a severe concussion by 12 and 13-year-olds trying to steal a car. Why? Because they've been allowed to do it. Not anymore. If we have our way, we will be able to make D.C. safe again. And the president's going to do it. And we've got this. Last night, there were 700 federal and local cops on the streets. And this is what the community wants. They want to be able to be safe. They want to come to the nation's capital and look at the fabulous museums and the monuments that we have here. And last night, there were 43 arrests, and we seized 7 handguns. And every night it's something else. But this is a message that we're not going to tolerate crime as if that's just the way things go. And I'm tired of hearing that crime is down. It's not down for people who are suffering from violent crime.
And one thing I've admired about you, when you got there, you reached out at your hand, and Muriel Bowser, the mayor, took it. Yeah. And you guys had to have a good relationship. I know she's under a ton of pressure from her left flank and maybe her city council. Here's what she said last night at a town hall.
This is a time where community needs to jump in, and we all need to do what we can in our space, in our lane, to protect our city and to protect our autonomy, to protect our home rule, and get to the other side of this guy and make sure we elect a Democratic House so that we have a backstop to this authoritarian push.
So I know there's always tension between local, state, and federal governments. That always happens. How can this work best for everybody in the long run?
Well, you know, yesterday I was in a meeting with the mayor, along with the police chief, Pamela Smith, and with our attorney general, Pam Bondi. And the meeting went very well. And our effort is to make D.C. safe. And I think that in the end, you know, we will all come together and make that happen. You know, politics and ideology are something that, you know, you can go sell to the left or sell to whatever. But the truth is the mayor and the police chief have an obligation to make this city safe.
But
not just for the people who live here.
Didn't she change her public message within 12 hours?
Sure, she did.
At noon, it seemed like she was saying one thing about cooperation. In the evening, it was different.
Sure.
I mean, that's how you heard it, right?
Yeah, that's how I heard it. But does it matter to me? No.
Another question for you. We got to wrap here. But you're in a unique position because of the laws in the District of Columbia. You have federal authority and you have local authority.
Right.
That makes you kind of a double threat. And based on your relationship with the president, that I know goes back decades, is that the reason he picked you?
You'll have to ask the president why he picked me, but I'm back to my roots, Bill. I mean, this is what I did for 30 years. I've been a prosecutor, a judge, and a DA. I fight crimes. I fight on behalf of the victims. I fight on behalf of those people who simply want to be safe and want to be able to walk outside their homes and not worry about a bunch of thugs or young punks going after them and beating the hell out of them. Those days are over, and we're going to make sure they're over. Politics is something else. I'm all about making sure that criminals are made responsible and accountable for the crimes they commit.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
Miss you.
Thank you.
Okay, take
Thanks,
care.
Jeanine. Nice to see you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.